Hello again. This is continuing our notes from 10.5. We left off looking at this example right here where we went from decaliters to liters, and we got there by timesing by 10 because remember when we go from a big unit to a small unit, there's going to be lots more in the smaller unit because it takes a lot of littles to make one big. Okay, let's look at a second example of this. Let's say I had 3 kilometers instead of, or no, what did I say? Liters? Liters. So let's say I had 3 kiloliters. Same thing, put your decimal point at the back of the unit you're using. And let's say I still want to go back to just plain liters. So I'm going to move my decimal 1, 2, 3 boxes in order to get to the liter section. Take out that old decimal point and fill in these empty boxes with zeros. So it'll take 3,000 liters to make 3 kiloliters. Okay, and we can show what that looks like on paper too. If I have 3 kiloliters and I want to know how many liters that is, remember for each box we move, it's times 10. And if we have multiples of those, then we just count by powers of 10. So this is times 10, times 100, times 1,000. Which means over here, going from big to small, we would take it times 1,000. 3 times 1,000 is 3,000, which is what we found over here. Okay? Let's look at the opposite side of things now. If we are wanting to go from a small unit to a big unit. So, when converting from small to big, still divide, but divide by 10, 100, 1,000, or more, depending on how many boxes you're moving. And we'll be doing the same thing. Move your decimal to the place you're converting to, then fill in the empty boxes with zeros. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Let's say I have, I don't know. Let's say, we'll just use 3 again. Let's say I have 3 liters. Remember, liters here in the middle. Always put your decimal point at the back of the unit you're using. Going from liters, let's go up to decaliters. So I want my decimal point to go this way. 1 time. Okay? So now this box here in decaliters, if this is the unit I'm using, I have to put a 0 here because it's an empty box. My 3 didn't move, just my decimal point, so now I have 0.3 or 0 and 3/10 decaliters makes 3 liters. And again, notice that these numbers kind of stay the same. I have a 3 in the liter and a 3 in the deciliter. All I did was add some zeros on there. Okay? Let's put this example in our notes. Always does this after I change the slide. Okay. Stop. Good grief. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Okay, we started with 3 liters, and we wanted to know how many deciliters that was. And on our chart here, we moved our decimal point this way 1 time. When going from a smaller unit to a bigger unit, we divide, and since we only moved 1 box, we divide by 10. So here we'll divide by 10. Now, on the metric system, sometimes this gets to be a little confusing. Here, with 3, there's no decimal point on there, so then how did we wind up with 0 and 3/10 deciliters? Where did that come from? Well, the same goes with the metric system as any other number. If you have just a whole number without a decimal point, where does that decimal point like to hide? Likes to hide at the end of that number, right at the back. So technically there is a decimal point back there at the end of the 3, and when we divided by 10, we just scooched that decimal point over like this. Remember when we started working on this stuff and we counted the number of zeros? For each 0, you move it 1 place. So for this case, there's 1 0 and 10, so we move it over 1 time, which is how we wound up with our decimal being right there. Alright, let's look at a bigger example. Let's say I want 3 liters to go into, kiloliters. Bum, bum, bum. So let's look at our chart here. I still have 3 liters. And remember, on these whole numbers that don't look like they have decimal points, it's hiding at the back. And I'm going all the way to kiloliter over here. 1, 2, 3 times. There's my new decimal point, and I've got some empty boxes here. Fill in those boxes with zeros. So it'll be 3 thousandths kiloliters makes 3 liters. Okay? Let's put this example in our notes as well. We just found this by using our little chart. We're dividing this time. And remember, each box is by 10. And I moved 1, 2, 3 boxes. 10, 100, 1,000. Okay? There's that. So that means I'll divide by 1,000. Remember, if our decimal point is here, there's 3 zeros, so you move it 3 times. 1, 2, 3, which is what we just did to find this on our chart. Okay, so use this chart. Make sure that you keep this handy because it'll be very helpful for you as you're doing your homework today. Okay, I do want to make just one more note really quick before we get out of our notebooks here. And it has to do with what we just talked about. Be careful of numbers with decimals. If you don't see a decimal, it's hiding at the back. That's really important to remember because some of our problems today will have that happen. Okay, let's get into our book now. We're going to look at some example problems here. This chart that you see is the same as what I gave you. It's just a little smaller and you can't write on this one as well. So I printed out you off a new one. See how they have meter, liter, gram in the middle as well? That just means these are your base units, whatever you're working with. Okay, turn over the next page. We're going to look at these bottom examples here. Convert 247 milligrams to centigrams, decigrams, and grams. The first thing we have to ask ourselves is, are the units being converted to a larger unit or a smaller unit? So if we look at our table here, we're starting with milligrams, and going to centigrams. So are we getting bigger or smaller? Remember, as we move left, our units get larger, so we're going bigger. Or larger, I guess. Should you multiply or divide by powers of 10 to convert? If we're going small to big, what operation do we use? You can use a little division, right? Okay. Oh, so then we'll use divide. So, 247 milligrams divided by 10. Now on 247, I don't see a decimal point, so where is it at? It's at the back here. There's 1 0 in 10, and I want my number to get smaller, so I'm going to move it in one place. So then I would have 24.7 centigrams. Now to go milligrams to decigrams, still going to divide. Here's my decimal point. Divide by 100, there's 2 zeros. 1, 2. Look where my decimal point is now. 2.47. And then one final one, here's my decimal at the back. I'm going milligrams to grams, which is 1,000, and there's 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3. 0 and 247 thousandths grams. Okay, I want you to try B on your own. Answer these two questions because that's going to help you know how to do this down here. Okay, let's go on to the next page. 1 and 2 are doing the same thing as A and B, what we just looked at, whoops, over here. Whoops, I forgot to put my divide in right there. Oop. Okay, now here, we don't get this. You would have to use your chart for this one. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to have to do this quick because we're kind of running out of time again. Whoops, this one. Okay, so for this one, we are converting 4,250 centimeters. So if we're using centimeters as our unit, I'm going to put my decimal point at the end of centimeters because that's the unit we're using. 4,250 centimeters. And we're moving it up to the meter mark here. So I'm going to move my decimal 1, 2. So I would have 42 and 50 hundredths meters, which is this. 42 and 50 hundredths. Or you could just do 42.5. Okay? Let's do one of these down here. Let's try... I guess these don't have decimals in them. Okay, well let's look at number 9. Number 9 is a comparison using greater than, less than, or equal to. It's the same as what we did before, where you have to change one into the other so that you can compare them. Can't compare hectograms and kilograms because they're not the same unit. So to do that, change one to the other, whichever one you go, and then you can do this. So if you do kilograms to hectograms, then you would have however many kilograms equals however many hectograms, and then you can compare hectograms to hectograms. Okay? I am out of time on this one, and I'm going to cross out 16 and 17 from your assignment, okay? Don't do those ones because I didn't have time to show you them in this video. I will see you in the next one, and let me know if you have questions. Bye, guys.